Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. I'm Fran, I'm from Venezuela, and we're going to be reacting to a video called British Plugs and Outlets Are on Another Level. Let's check it out and comment, like, subscribe, and start.
British AC plugs and sockets are very different from a lot of the other plugs and socket sets around the world, and they're super different than what we're used to here in North America. In fact, holding these two next to each other, these British ones seem absolutely mammoth. But I'm going to cover 10 reasons why I think this plug and this socket may just be the best designed set in the entire world, as well as a handful of reasons why I think they might not be. Feature number 10 on our list is this longer ground pin. Now, long ground pins are actually super common. We see them in our US plugs and in other plugs all over the world, but this is quite different actually. It serves a purpose in an overall safety system on these types of plugs. By the way, these are called Type G, and the Type G here has this longer pin because as you insert it, and by the way, across the pond there, they call this an earth pin. So as you insert the earth pin, you'll notice that the first thing that touches is that earth pin because it's longer. So the neutral and the live haven't made contact yet, but there's actually what's called a shutter system inside here that it's opening up by pushing that one in first. So just now, as I got it opened up the shutters, and then I can proceed to plug it all the way in. Until I do that, these are actually closed off. Obviously, never stick anything into an outlet. Now, this may be telling about me, I don't know, but literally one of the earliest memories I have in life is when I was super little, maybe 3 or 4, and I stuck something into an outlet, got completely shocked, and I remember looking at the outlet after this had happened and seeing these black scorch marks all over it.
Oh my God.
Kids in the UK most likely haven't had that experience.
That's like the first thing they teach you.
You can get the shirt that I'm wearing as well as many other DIY-oriented shirts, and you can check those out in the links in the description below.
Okay, love it.
Feature number 9 is that when we insert the earth pin and clear those shutters, the only thing that's exposed on the live and the neutral is actually this black section here. If you're wondering what that is, that's actually a bit of insulation, and it's 9 millimeters up these pins here. So that's because once you have some contact with the live and the neutral to your receptacle, it makes it so that you can't touch anything that's live at that point. Check it out. So if I get this part of the way in there, and it's actually touching, now the only thing that's exposed is just the insulated area, which is not conductive. So I might be able to touch that and actually be safe, and that's the idea anyway. Obviously, you should never try that.
I wouldn't touch it.
Make it really difficult to get yourself shocked because everything is covered and protected as part of this overall
You're gonna die, but it's gonna be.
Feature number 8 has everything to do with how the cord comes out of the plug itself. As I plug this into the wall outlet here, you'll notice that it's always coming down on the bottom like this, and that makes it so that you can't really pull this thing out. If you pull this way with it, it's just going to stay in place. And even if you pull out this way, like from the pretty good. And it's really not going anywhere.
Why would you do that?
Now, this has come loose a little bit, but a lot less than it would if the cord were coming out of the face of the plug. Speaking of plugs being ripped out of the wall,
I'm looking at my plugs and I'm like, oh yes,
if we open this up and take a look inside
they're right in the center.
You'll actually see that there's some pretty cool safety features built right inside. The first thing you might notice is there is built-in strain relief right here, and the cool thing is you can actually remove these little fins in many cases to replace this cord if you need to or to work on it. The next thing is the short cable in here, this brown one, that's your live cable. And this live wire right here is the shortest one and the straightest one, so that as you pull this cord out, if it gets ripped out specifically, that one is going to be the first one to disconnect, cutting the electricity to the rest of this. The second one is this blue or the neutral one here that's underneath, and that will get pulled out next, and at that point you have no electricity connected, just your ground.
Like a bomb.
I think it's pretty brilliant that there's extra slack built into the ground. There's very little, but a little bit of slack built into the neutral, and no slack built into the live, so that if this gets ripped out, it pulls the electricity first, again, keeping the user safe. While we're looking at the open plug, that brings us to feature 6, which is the fact that these Type G plugs can actually be opened up just about any time you need to by removing one or more screws.
Why would I need to open
Type G, just so you know, is not just used in the UK. They're actually all over the place and pretty much anywhere the UK has had some major influence. So for example, they're used in Ireland, the United Arab Emirates, Singapore, Hong Kong, Beijing, Indonesia, parts of India, and even several other countries. So those are very different from the Type A and Type B that we use here in North America.
Oh yeah, those
the
were
Type A is the
familiar with.
2-prong here, and the Type B is the 3-prong, which includes the
hate
ground
those.
pin. And these guys don't have any way to service anything in here. All of this is completely sealed off, it's completely solid, and there's no way to do anything to fix this if this starts to become broken or frayed.
Yeah,
Your
you have to
options
like get another
are
one.
to toss it, which is what most people do, and get a new
Yes.
one, or you can cut it off and use a replacement plug. I've got a video showing
Never
how to
done
do
that in my life.
But it's nice
I've
that
just
with the
bought new
Type G
cords.
plugs here, it's just a built-in feature to be able to fix these or adjust these if needed.
You have to know what you're
All of the
doing.
names you see on the screen here are the people who have most recently
Yeah, you
joined
can't
our
just,
channel
like-
membership and are supporting the channel.
Well, maybe
So
like
thank
you
to
watch a
each
couple
and
of
every
YouTube
one.
videos and
You
like
most likely
you
notice
like, I know
the
what I'm
fuse
doing. It's
inside
fine.
the plug
I'm gonna
itself
fix it.
here. We see this from time to time in North American plugs, but
Oh,
it's
it's a
definitely not a
fuse.
standard.
I
Having
thought
a
it was a
fuse in every
battery.
plug
I
is
don't know
actually
anything about
essential
this.
to the system they use, which is called a ring circuit. A ring circuit has the ground, neutral, and live wires going out from the source location and then feeding every single socket and then looping all the
Okay.
way back to the source. This is
Is
different
with
than the
transmit,
radio
like,
circuits that we
electricity?
use here in North America. We start at the circuit breaker panel, and then a line goes out called a home run, connects to as many outlets as we
The
need, or
home run?
receptacles, and then it ends at a light fixture or an outlet. In the UK, the ring circuit actually acts like two separate radial circuits going at the same time, one in each direction.
And
As a
that's
result,
better?
having a fuse on every appliance means that if there's a short or an overload in an appliance, the fuse in the plug can blow rather than tripping the whole circuit and everything else on it. These fuses are typically
okay.
pretty easy to replace, and they cost next to nothing as well. For a plug like this, you do have to take it apart to access that plug, but it's usually just one screw like we saw.
Like a screwdriver,
But a lot of plugs
yeah.
actually come with a little access panel that you can get without
Oh.
removing any screws to make it even easier. Number 4
that's
on
so-
our
yeah,
list
you
is
just
the
replace it.
robustness of these pins, which are so good at carrying a large load. Now these pins are pretty massive. You may have noticed that. They're actually all
Yeah, they're
4
quite
millimeters
big.
thick on these Type Gs. This is 8 millimeters thick, and then these neutral and lives are about 6.35 millimeters. When I hold this side by side next to our Type B,
my
you
God,
can see
it
the
looks-
difference.
it
The
looks like
result
a
of this
giant.
is that the Type G has at least 50% more metal than a Type B, and it actually has 3.5 times more
And that's
metal
better?
than the Type A that doesn't have the ground. Feature number 3 is the fact that every Type G plug has a ground or an earth pin. This is really important for a handful of reasons. As far as safety
Don't
is
know what's an
concerned,
earth
always
pin.
having a ground means that you're not going to experience the
Oh, you're not gonna
arcing.
get
At least
shocked.
You shouldn't, in most circumstances, experience any arcing. Arcing is bad news because that basically means that electricity has gone off the rails and it's going to find the path of least resistance, and a lot of times that's through you. That could shock you, or with enough voltage, that could stop your heart and kill you. So very dangerous if you don't have that ground in place
Okay.
at all times.
Yes,
You will
dangerous,
notice
but I'm
on
guessing
some
you're not gonna get
plugs in
electrocuted
the
with,
UK,
like,
for
a
example, that
homemade-
these are just plastic.
Like a
Typically,
lamp.
if you see
Hopefully.
a plastic pin on here, that means the appliance is double grounded. You can tell by a marking or an icon on the appliance that is a
Oh.
square within a square. It also serves the purpose of not only opening the shutters, but also always keeps things aligned. You cannot mix up the live and the neutral if your ground is always at that top place. Number 2
course.
is the fact that every outlet or receptacle has its own switch. So check this out. I've got this little switch right here that I can use to control this lamp. Of course, you can control the lamp
Okay.
on the device itself, but this comes in
Yes.
handy for multiple purposes. Number 1, it gives you an extra place to turn something on or off, and along with that, it cuts the power completely to the device. There's a lot of devices and appliances out there that are using a
It's true.
single amount of energy at all times, even when it's powered off. So by switching it off at
Even
the
when
receptacle
powered
here,
off?
you're taking care of that issue. Number 1 on our list, and honestly,
Yeah,
these were
that's-
pretty tricky to
that's
put in
actually
any
super
particular
helpful.
order, so take that for what it's worth, but is the fact that all of these outlets and plugs run off of 230 volts. Here in the US, we use
Oh, and
a
the others are like
120 volt
180, yeah,
system. There are
110
different
and
names for
1080.
it, but it's the same idea. And in the UK, for example, and in most of the world actually, it's a 230, which is anywhere from 220
I've never
to
heard of
240 volts
230.
typically. Running on
I think
230
there's, like,
volts
very
has a
few
lot of
appliances
impact
that
on
use
how
that.
you can use the outlets and receptacles around your house. So for example, if you want to plug a lamp into this, no problem obviously, but you can even plug a much larger appliance over here. Let's say a washing machine, for example, something a little more power hungry.
Yeah, I think
Space
washing
heaters have
machines
been a
are the
big
ones that
issue
use
for tripping
220.
circuit breakers here in the US. On 230 volt, they can handle that a lot better. You can even plug in things like a hairdryer and an iron at the same time in many cases, especially if the gauging of the wire in the walls is appropriate for that kind of use.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, isn't like you
with
can
these
do that all the
features
time,
how
right?
impressive this setup is, but that is not to say that it doesn't have its flaws. For starters,
I want to know because
look
it
at
looks
the size
perfect.
of these things. I mean,
It's
this
massive,
is a
yes.
standard Type
It's
A. This
big.
is what we use for most things in the United States and in North America. I'd seriously say this is probably at least 5 times as big. You can see it from the front.
It is.
You can see it from the side.
But I think it looks better.
Another consideration with
but it
this
looks
is that
better.
the ring circuits that are used in the UK and elsewhere have a problem with what's called load balancing. Now, many times it's not
Load
really a
balance.
big issue, but what it means is that you don't want to have a lot of your power being consumed on one portion of the ring. You want to distribute that
Okay.
throughout the ring as much as possible, because if you don't, you're actually forcing a lot of electricity, a lot of load to happen in a short distance of these wires. And these wires typically tend to be a
that's
thinner
bad?
gauge, which is part of the beauty of the system. It takes up less copper, but the load balancing can be an issue in many cases. On that note, installing
And I'm guessing
or
it gets
maintaining
burned.
or even testing a ring circuit is a lot more difficult than a radial circuit. So that's something to be considered with the overall
you have to
system
maintain
in
those
general.
things?
The switches that we showed earlier on the socket here are a good thing in some cases, but they're a bad thing in other cases. So for example, let's say this light is not turning on. You flip the switch. So let's turn this off, on the socket here. We flip the switch, everything seems to be dead. You're not sure what's going on. And at that point, you're not sure if you need to start troubleshooting the lamp itself, or if it's the light bulb, or if it's the socket. Lastly, due to the design of the plug, if you were to just let this thing fall somewhere or unplug it, guess how it's gonna land? Every single time. Now, if you thought waking up in the middle of the night, walking through the house, and stepping on a Lego was painful,
Oh, yes. I think it was interesting. I never really thought about it, but I know he said that the downsides, but to be honest, everything looks perfect to me. Now I want to get those. I can't obviously because I would have to like change everything. I would have to get like connectors. But I think honestly, they're better. The downsides are like, yes, of course, you can like don't step on them, but maybe like don't unplug it. And I love the fact that they have like little switches because I think that's so useful. Instead of like constantly like turning off, like electric devices, or if you want to like cut the power completely, instead of like taking off, the cord, you can just like switch it off. Like it's perfect. I love that. And also I think it's probably better. It's better like cost effective. I think because like he said, like you can repair them. Like when you have a normal a normal cord, and the thing like the cord either starts to like peel off, and you start to see like the I think it's copper, the little wires, little metal wires, you have to, it's a health hazard, you should probably throw that away. But in those, like if it has like some sort of issue, like you can just like open the thing up and like change the thing, change the little wire, or you can change the fuse or whatever that's giving you trouble. So it's better because it's probably going to last you like so long. I was going to say like a lifetime, but probably not a lifetime, but it's going to like, you can have one of those for like probably years, like 15-20 years. But cords, and extension cords are constantly getting damaged. They're constantly breaking. They're a mess. And it's true that it also like they give you a lot of electricity. Like if you're not careful, and if you're like barefoot, like the thing, like it's always gonna shock you. So in this, like he said, it's really safe. Like you don't like, there's no place that you can like touch the thing that is gonna shock you. So like that's perfect. Like I said, I don't think that maybe there are. I know, so I don't want to say like nobody ever gets killed because of like it's not that dangerous, but probably it is dangerous. I think obviously it depends on like the thing that you're sort of like unplugging and you're like sticking your finger on. Probably if you're like, I don't know, if it's like a very powerful thing or a very powerful appliance like a fridge, I don't know, something that uses a lot of power. Probably it's more dangerous because you're not gonna get shocked, and probably it's gonna give you a heart attack. But with like lamps or like computers, TVs or something like that, it does sort of like it can shock you, and it's not pleasant. It's not gonna kill you, but it's certainly not pleasant. So I love the fact that this seems like so safe. It's sort of like designed with safety in mind, which I love. And he said, well, they're bigger, but to be honest, I don't like normal cords. I think they sort of like they look ugly. It's they're just uglier in general. You know, they have like the three things or the other. Well, they always have like three or two things, but it's always like it's ugly. The design is ugly. And when he like, I don't know if all of the UK switches are like that, you know, the plugs and outlets are like, well, the plugs are like that. But I love the fact that it's sort of like sleek. Yeah, it's thick, but it's sort of like a white thingy, and it's sort of like round, and I think it's better. It's bigger, but I don't know, it kind of looks better than the normal plugs that we have in America. So I really like this, and I want to get one of those, but I think I would have to like move to the UK in order for it to be like normal. And I can, and because like he also mentioned like the voltage is different, so I don't think that you can use those outside of UK and the UK influenced places. But this is really funny, very interesting, and also yeah, I felt like I learned a lot. So that was it for today, and I'll see you soon. Bye.